guys. I think we are live. Hello and happy Friday.
Hello, guys. How are you?
I'm good. So we had a little time off. We took a little bit of last week off for this week? Last week for 4th of July. After having some great interviews with some of the GOP primary candidates, which, Dan, thank you so much for setting those up. That was great.
Lee Zeldin has reached out to us since he won, and he wants to come on, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Lee Zeldin, come on in, baby. Come in. I want to talk to you.
And we will certainly invite Kathy Hochul as well.
Absolutely.
Maybe people aren't ready for that in July. Maybe that's more of a September thing, but he's already reached out.
Oh, Lee Zeldin, we have things to discuss. Come on in, buddy. Come on in. That would be great. How was your 4th of July, guys?
3-day weekend. I love it when it's not in the middle of the week. So that was great. The weather, Friday was rough, but the rest of the weekend was outstanding. Even when the rain was supposed to come, for the most part, it didn't. That was just a great weekend.
Yeah,
Adam,
we had a great time. We visited some friends at Lake Sacandaga, which is just growing up here. I never went to Lake Sacandaga, and I don't know why. It's a fantastic lake. It's much, in this area, Lake George is the queen, and everybody loves going to the Lake George. Yeah. Sacandaga's got some sandy beaches on the islands there. I mean, it's a different lake than Lake George, but it's got some really neat parts to it. So had a great time there, and then just went to my father's farm and shot off some fireworks with the kids.
Oh, well, I was slumming it here downtown, and I got to tell you, not having fireworks or any kind of 4th of July celebration after the race in the morning, the Firecracker 4 race, is just like so not on brand for Saratoga. And it kind of stunk because, I don't know, 4th of July, just you need some fireworks, and I think the Chamber of Commerce really has to rethink their approach towards this and work with the community in the city to try to make it happen again for next year. Because
what was the reason for it not this year? I did see something, but I haven't verified that is actually.
I will tell you the accurate reason, which is based on my experience in dealing with the chamber from before I took office into being in office. Todd Shimkus really feels strongly that the chamber should not have to pay for fireworks. They've historically always paid for them in the past, and so he at one point, I think about a year or two ago, he made an effort to put out a fundraising call to the community and have people contribute to the fireworks fund. That effort was not, super compelling. And so he got some donations, but not enough to cover the fireworks. At one point, New Year's Eve was going to be canceled. And then Sonny Bonaccio and Company stepped up and sponsored it at the last minute. So the city had 8 days to put it together and get all the license and everything approved. They did. They scrambled. They got it done. Fireworks went off. Everyone was happy. But since then, I just think the chamber, again, it's not willing to pay for the fireworks. And they haven't, I guess, been interested in doing a more comprehensive fundraising campaign. So
I would say we have different organizations that could be doing more for this. We have assessment district, which if people are not aware of what the special assessment district is, I sat on that board for a little bit. It's a properties that are kind of located on Broadway and around Broadway. And they all probably a marginally higher tax rate. And that goes into a pool to pay for things like Christmas decorations that you see lining the street or holiday decorations. Or you have our city council and you have the chamber. And it just seems like this, and you have a DBA, and it seems like these organizations could get together and just figure it out, because it is just, it was just something I loved growing up here in Saratoga, is going to the park and seeing the fireworks. It brings in a ton of people, and it's just part of something that makes Saratoga special, that it just seems flat without it. But
yeah,
I personally think the city should foot the bill, and I thought that going into office, but then of course we had the pandemic, we had financial crisis, et cetera, et cetera. It's about $20,000 to do fireworks. But again, it just seems so, isn't Saratoga Springs like an all-American city? It just seems strange to not have anything. And on Monday, on the 4th, downtown was desolate. There's nobody here. It was eerie,
Participatory budgeting. That's your proposal, right?
I'm sure that would go over well. Well, anyway, we have lots to discuss this week. Sorry, clearing my throat over here. I went to the city council meeting. Or I didn't go. I listened at home. And so we have some stuff to discuss from the city council meeting. But before we do that, 2 things. One, right now, and I know this isn't like local necessarily, but right now, President Biden just signed an executive order about reproductive rights, protecting reproductive rights. I don't know what that means yet. I think it's like literally happening now, but that's an exciting development for people who have been concerned about the Supreme Court decision. And I'm curious to see what that means for the country and for women. So keep an eye on that. And then back to local. This morning, I saw a press release from the People's Voice, which is basically the media arm of Saratoga Black Lives Matter. And it's it says it's a public comment for the Saratoga City Council. They were not at the City Council meeting this last Tuesday, so it's not a public comment they made there or have made to date. Presumably, they will make it at the next City Council meeting, but it's a little long, but I just wanted to read it to you guys and then have a quick discussion about the content. So it says, "We have been covering the social justice movement from the lens of grassroots organizations and the people on the ground. The new Saratoga administration claims to be more transparent than the last administration. This new administration has made promises that they will participate in, fund, and stand behind initiatives geared towards the betterment of people in Saratoga Springs. In order to be truthful to our mission statement, which is always to strive to be the voice of the people, we feel it's necessary to connect with and learn more about this administration. We aim to do this by offering this administration opportunities to speak to our media outlet. It's very important that these campaign promises and initiatives that this City Council is undertaking be made transparent to the people. Speaking to grassroots independent media outlets like ours is a crucial step to show this council's full transparency. Media has been such a divisive part of the relationship between the people and the former administration. Let's today mark the moment where we strive to move forward. We have a close and positive connection with this group. On behalf of this organization," this part is from Saratoga BLM on the press release. "We have a close and positive connection with this group. On behalf of this organization and with the experience of our own media coverage as testament, we request that this council honor a request made by that group. The request is that the council select a member of Saratoga BLM, Lexus Figueroa, to be appointed to the Saratoga Civilian Police Review Board. Specifically Lexus because he resides in the city and fits the criteria. Their community work is a testament to Saratoga's BLM commitment to public safety. Saratoga BLM was an integral part of the Saratoga Police Reform Task Force throughout its entire process. Many respected community members would back this council's decision to appoint Lexus Figueroa to the CPRB. The components of an effective CPRB are known to the Capital District, Albany. While having its own unique style of government, it has an effective CPRB with the power to do its job effectively, and some of its members are in the grassroots activism community. This cements the need to have members of groups like Saratoga BLM participate in the CPRB process. We believe the people of Saratoga would see this appointment as a step forward for Saratoga Springs." So that concludes their press release. I have lots of thoughts on it, but I wanted to see what you guys thought first.
One of the things that jumps out at me in that release is and there's a lot to talk about here, but the fact that they're saying media is divisive and blaming media for the divisiveness of the last of City Council, because I went to a lot of council meetings. Robin, you were at all of them for the last or the majority of the commissioner, and the divisiveness that they would bring to these meetings and the how they would conduct themselves and yell over people and yell really personal things at commissioners and our mayor. This is the divisiveness that they're referring to is brought by them. This is what they do.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Adam, at all. I think what they're referring to is some of the city council members' refusal to talk to the media about what they're doing at City Hall. I think that's what they're talking about. And there were, like, the mayor, for example, would not engage with certain media outlets. She would not return calls or give comments. That was her approach towards some media outlets. I'm guessing that's what they're talking about. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
regardless, the divisiveness is one of the reasons I don't think this. I think this is a horrible idea. Is that this group? That's what they do. They seek to divide, and they do so in very aggressive ways. And it's just it's cooled down with this new administration. But I just for that's one thought I have among many. Dan, how about you?
Well, first of all, let me note, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the most part, the first 6 months of this year, i.e. the first 6 months of this new city council, BLM has been extremely quiet, if not hasn't said anything in Saratoga about Saratoga issues. Am I more correct than not on that?
They were at city council meetings in like January, February, and then in March it kind of dwindled off. They have not been to the last at least 4 or 5 meetings.
But they've not been vocal. They've not been vocal.
No, they were pretty vocal. There was a little period in there. There was at least 2 or 3 meetings where they were quite vocal. One I was at where the whole group was there. So there have been moments where they've been very vocal, but it hasn't been consistent. And so carry on.
Sorry. Right, there was one where they called the police subhuman. I remember that.
That was the one.
Had to
yeah.
To give her thoughts that this is not right.
It feels like a little bit of grandstanding. Why wouldn't they go to the city council directly, get the meetings with the mayor and those that are appointing it, and make the request? Why is this done through a press release? That just seems, again, if you want to get something done, then talk directly to the people that have the power to make that happen. This is quite the circuitous route that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, my take on it is twofold. One, I think there's actually a lot to be said for what they were talking about in the beginning of that press release, which is holding people accountable for the promises they've made while campaigning. I think that's a really legitimate point. And I think it couldn't be more obvious that the Democrats who are currently on the city council really used Saratoga BLM and politically while they were campaigning, and Saratoga BLM has really used them. It's kind of been, a tit for tat. They continue to use each other for political purposes and for to get to to meet their own goals. But I think they've kind of become aware of that these are not necessarily authentic promises that are being made to them by politicians, that oftentimes they're being used for people's political purposes, and they're not going to necessarily carry out what they promised when they're in office. And there have been a lot of things that have happened in the public safety department that you would think that Saratoga BLM would have had an issue with. For example, when Commissioner Montagnino hired an active duty police officer, a white man, to be his deputy, I thought, my gosh, Saratoga BLM, this is something that they would really be upset about. They didn't say boo about it. This last MOA that was on the last city council meeting that, dramatically increases the funding and payment and compensation to the police department. That is something that is contradictory to what Saratoga BLM wants, which is a full defunding of the police. But we haven't heard anything about it. Now, also, the applications to be on the Civilian Review Board have been available to the public for at least 2 months, I want to say. I mean, for quite some time. And so I know as of about 2 or 3 weeks ago, they'd only received about 7 applications to be on the Civilian Review Board. Lexus was not one of those applications. So I'm not sure why he wouldn't just go through the normal application process and then, go and make a public comment or have people speak on his behalf at the city council. But sorry, I'm getting a phone call. All that being said, Commissioner Golub, who is our Public Works Commissioner, was the head of the police collaborative, the Executive Order 203, that is referred to in this press release. Saratoga BLM was not represented on the police collaborative. They came and made some public comment. Their public comments were quite disruptive. They had moments where there was a real exasperation and frustration expressed from the collaborative to Saratoga BLM, but they weren't sitting members of that collaborative. So I'm not sure why they're taking credit for having so much to do with what that collaborative produced. That doesn't necessarily ring true to me. But the number one takeaway from the collaborative, but then also what Commissioner Golub, who is tasked with researching and putting together a proposal for the CRB, one of his main points when he looked at CRBs across the country and analyzed why they succeed or why they fail, the number one thing of what not to do was you do not put political activists on a civilian review board. That is a recipe for failure. And in this case, we're talking about an activist who has labeled the entire police department murderers and has called them murderers for the last 2 years quite loudly. He has made some heinous accusations against them that are completely unfounded. And I don't know why someone coming in with that mentality would make for an impartial or productive member of a civilian review board. To me, that would be like on the opposite side. That would be like taking a police officer who was incredibly racist, aggressive, had a long disciplinary record, had been overtly racist and targeting people of color, and putting that person onto the civilian review board, thinking they would be somehow impartial. I mean, I just think again, takeaway, and it was from Commissioner Golub himself: political activism on a civilian review board, recipe for failure. So I'm really interested to see how this plays out, because I can see I'm not sure if the rest of the is going to agree with that statement, and this is going to be a real kind of interesting moment to see how the council responds to this.
Can I ask you, Robin? You said there were 7 applications. Do we know from the big picture how far along they are? Do they have set dates that they plan on having this done by? Where is this? I've lost the a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're a whole lot of nowhere. The other thing I heard, and again, Commissioner Montagnino has not officially confirmed this, but the other thing I had heard was that of the 7 people who had applied for the civilian review board, about half were former police officers. And so there hasn't been any action taken. They haven't moved forward. My guess is that Commissioner Montagnino is unhappy with the lack of applications they've gotten, and probably having a CRB that is the majority of which is former law enforcement is not what he had in mind when he put this together. So I don't think they're any further down the road. I also know it's such an involved and complicated process to set up a civilian review board and get it going. I don't expect it to be in action anytime soon. I think it takes a while, but I just can't see any universe in which putting Lexus on that board would do anything for the credibility of the group as they're kind of introducing themselves to this process into the city.
Right, Robin. I think we've talked about this before, but the point is that for this CRB to be successful, you need buy-in from both sides, right? You need buy-in from the people. You need buy-in from law enforcement.
Police department. Yep.
And to do that, you can't staff it with the extremes, because you're going to lose the buy-in from one group or the other, and it's just going to turn into politics as usual, shouting over each other, and not really causing meaningful change. I mean, and I know, for a long time, our police force was viewed as killers, as killing Darryl Mount, and that's been disproven. So this idea that our police force is so bad that we need radical change and radical people there to police the police is just not true, and it's not helpful, and it's not what the city needs. So.
And I'm sorry you touched on this. I think the 3 of us agree, because we talked about it. There should be, it should be a very diverse board, though.
Yes.
Correct? We all agree on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. I knew you agreed with that, but I just wanted. It's worth stating again.
I do think it's really important to have people on the CRB who are not white and have had experiences in which they have, felt uncomfortable, concerned for their own safety because of the color of their skin while, dealing with law enforcement. I think that's a crucial perspective to have on a CRB. But, coming into it as the leader of a political activism group that has an anti-police agenda is,
yes.
I don't know how and I also don't know how someone, if they were filing a complaint and it was assigned to Lexus, I don't necessarily know that people would, feel comfortable taking their concern to him and having, to me, this is, again, not a recipe for success. And I think that Saratoga BLM of all the groups should be the most invested in the success of the civilian review board.
Yeah, that's a good point.
One thing I'll say, and we come on here most of the time very pro Saratoga police, but Saratoga police have done some things that I think warranted more questioning. There was an incident where they filed a protest. Regardless of how I felt about the protest and blocking the streets, they followed a protester home and they stopped her in her driveway.
Well, that was exhaustively reviewed, but yes, continue.
I guess it was, but it was exhaustively reviewed by who, right? So that's why you have a civilian review board, because it wasn't reviewed by an impartial group. And I think if this is why you need buy-in, because if that was justified and not just legal, but justified, right? I think there's a difference. Then it should be vetted. And I think that's what led to this whole Daryl Mount problem, was that it just initially there were some bumps in the road that casts doubt on what happened there. And so this is why we need a civilian review board, and the civilian review board would be an asset to both the people and the police if it's done in the right way. And I think we all agree that Lex putting somebody with his track record and what he's done and said, it would just be it would politicize the whole group and not push agendas, not what's right.
And from and you guys both touched on it, from the perspective of the police officer, it's got to be a fair process. And like you said, Robin, keep in mind, and you touched on this, Robin, that initially it comes into one civilian review board member, not the whole board. And if that is him and you're the police officer, you're going to say, I'm cooked. He's said so many times how much he thinks of the police department. I'm cooked. And that should not be the case.
Although I think the way they have it set up is that someone would indicate that they wanted something reviewed by the CRB. Then the folks on the CRB would take it and then assign it out to one of the members. I think that's how it would work. But in either case, I will say, so as the Commissioner of Public Safety, I was the civilian oversight for the police department. And I probably got half a dozen complaints in my 2 years. None of them actually had anything to do with race, but they were all really sensitive situations in which I could understand the person's hesitance or anxiety about going to the police with this concern. And my issue was there was no standard process for how the complaint should be responded to, and there was no workflow for it. So there was no time frame in which you could say, okay, you'll hear back in this time frame, this is how it's going to happen. It was just kind of left up to the commissioner, really. And that I had a problem with. And so in the interim, while this CRB was happening, because we also proposed one back last fall, we had a professional standards position established. And the professional standards lieutenant did all the things I was just talking about, put a workflow in place, a timeline in place, and a process in place such that people understood how their complaint would be received. And there was also just, little things, but significant things. Like if you needed to go meet with the professional standards lieutenant, we had a separate entrance in the back of the police department so someone could come in and not have to see any law enforcement, not have to walk through the police department, because that's all really intimidating. If you're in a position of having an issue with the police that you are concerned about and trying to address, walking through that department is not a great, it's just fundamentally intimidating. But where I'm getting is that this lieutenant, unfortunately, was essentially forced out by Commissioner Montenegro. So the lieutenant we had in the professional standards role is gone now because of essentially Commissioner Montenegro's actions towards her. So that's really too bad, because this is going to take a while to set up, and there should be someone in that professional standards division. Anyway.
I know it's vacant, but was somebody else assigned the duties?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Okay. Well, that's a big department not to have somebody in that role.
I agree, but well, this actually brings us right perfectly into our next topic, which is at the last city council meeting, and we talked about this on one of our last podcasts, the Police Benevolence Association had been in discussions with Commissioner Montenegro in response to his desire to change their shifts from 12-hour shifts back to 10-hour shifts. And they had come up with a memorandum of agreement that they presented to the city council at the last council meeting that gave the police department a significant increase in their compensation, from base salaries to longevity to overtime pay, et cetera, et cetera. And at the time, it was pretty shocking, because if you just read the MOA, as Dan, as you said, like it was a huge win for the PBA, and that it was it really dramatically increased their compensation in pretty much every possible area. And so I know on the last podcast, I had some concerns about it. I think we all expressed some concerns about it, although we all agreed that we wanted our police officers to be compensated appropriately, and we don't feel they're being compensated appropriately right now. Well, on Tuesday, the PBA, specifically Sergeant Angela McGovern and Sergeant Danny Mullen, who are the president and vice president. Sergeant Mullen is president. Sergeant McGovern is the vice president of the PBA, made a presentation to the city council. and walking through the history of how they've been compensated, how it compares to other municipalities, and what their needs were, where their staffing level was. And it was actually an exceptional presentation. Sergeant McGovern delivered it to the council. She is a really talented public speaker. She is articulate. She is well-spoken. She is calm, cool, collected. She handles the questions incredibly adeptly. And so she did a tremendous job. Once she walked through it and kind of explained all the reasons and the whys behind how they arrived at this agreement, I was totally on board with it, completely on board with it. What she led off with, though, there was a few things that I was like, wait, what? She led off with it by saying, Commissioner Montagnino just sent an email out to the police department in February telling them they were going to 10-hour shifts with no explanation, it was just like, this is happening, it's happening now, like, that's it. Which obviously immediately triggered a grievance from the PBA because that's a contractual issue, which Commissioner Montagnino should know as an attorney, that there's a contractual issue with the PBA. You can't just send out a random email and expect it to happen. But it's also, you're talking about schedules, people's lives, and a tremendous amount of work to rework the staffing. And so I just thought that was a kind of like a ludicrous way to begin these conversations, and not a way to tee yourself up for success as the commissioner. But again, she walked through all the ways in which they arrived at these various increases in compensation, and they really all made sense. Like, she talked about Travers Day, for example, which was one of the things that I was kind of chuckling about, because they added Juneteenth and Travers Day as holidays, right? And which seemed kind of funny to me, because Juneteenth is a federal holiday, but Travers Day certainly is not a federal holiday. Well, they had actually asked for Juneteenth had been already passed by the city council as a federal holiday. All the other unions were taking it as a federal holiday, so they just wanted that as well. They'd also asked for like Thanksgiving and Christmas and some other holidays to be included. Where they ended up reaching a compromise was just doing Travers and Juneteenth. On Travers, they need 30 officers on Travers Day, right, to handle the Travers craziness, which starts at about 5 a.m. We only have 42 patrol officers. And so when you need 30 to work Travers Day, it does make sense to kind of incentivize officers to come in and work when you need the vast majority of your officers to come in. But they also cover the fact that they're down right now 20 officers. We are down 20 officers right now. That is stunning to me.
You can't make that up through the academy. I mean, I guess you can theoretically. I just don't know in actuality how you could do that with the limitations of civil service lists, academy capacity, things like that. You have.
Well, what they reference, Dan, is they are trying to do lateral transfers.
Yeah,
exactly.
But they're not getting applicants or qualified applicants because of and this is what the PBA said, right? So there's going to be an inherent bias there, but they're not getting it because of the benefits of working for the SSPD. So
listen, I can tell you, I worked with PBA to accept lateral transfers when I was in office. It is not the solution that I think it's being overemphasized as a solution here, because first of all, our hiring standards are incredibly specific and much higher than other law enforcement agencies. And so when someone's transferring over here, 9 times out of 10, they're going to have to take a reduction in pay and a reduction in rank, because their qualifications don't marry up to what we need in our police department, what we require. The police department had said that because we got so few applications, the one and only thought that was discussed at one point to increase the number of applicants that we could get through lateral transfers was to drop basically the college requirement, which no one in the police department wanted to do. No one thought that was a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think the police department thought that was a good idea. But save for that, because the other thing you have to think about is if someone's really unhappy and where in the agency that they're working in, or the department that they're working in doesn't want them for whatever reason, so they're looking to go someplace else, that's not always a great reflection of their performance as a police officer, and you don't necessarily want to get the folks that are just not doing well in other places. And so again, keeps being offered as a solution in a way to kind of fill this void. I don't think it's going to bear out. And Commissioner Mattison made a public comment on Tuesday to that effect as well. So anyhow,
But you know what? After watching that presentation, and you're right, Robin. The sergeant, she made some. It was very well thought out and explained and presented. My issue though is that, of course, it's figures lie and liars figure, and not to say that there were lies in there, but I would like to see some kind of unbiased analysis of what this is really going to cost the city, because it's these, we've talked about, these professional unions can have huge costs. So they reference the base pay of the officers, but nothing about benefits, retirement age, benefits after retirements. And so I, as a taxpayer in Saratoga, would either like to see our finance department or bring in an independent organization, an independent auditor, to go through and say, all right, what is really going to be the cost of this to the city? Because this hiring these professional union employees, there's a lot of costs that aren't just the base salary or the overtime.
Well,
it's the cost of all the benefits associated with, and that's what scares me, is that we didn't really see those costs in the presentation by the PBA.
I think the finance department is totally capable of doing that. I think one of the unfortunate things about the timing of this was that they made this presentation at the council meeting on Tuesday when Commissioner Songvi was on vacation. So our Commissioner of Finance wasn't there at the meeting to presumably run through some of the concerns or questions the finance department would have. But I'm assuming when she gets back, she will have a response and be able to quantify some of those numbers. But by and large, the takeaway was we have not increased the compensation for our officers in such a long period of time that some of these increases might seem big, but it's really just making up for the fact that these numbers haven't changed for the last 10 years. And so again, I was really sold on it, and I hope it happens. But is it going to fix our short-term issues? Nope. Is it going to necessarily get 20 great new police officers here? Nope. But it's a start. It's something. So I don't know. How do you feel about it, Dan?
As a quick aside, at the Congress Park Carousel event 2 weeks ago, I did step aside with Jim Montanino, introduce myself, acknowledge that I said, I've been pretty critical of you. My co-hosts have been. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you. He was congenial. He was pleasant. We agreed to try to touch base just as a side view. But on that generally, I'm more optimistic than you on the lateral transfers, because sometimes lateral transfers are done for the right reasons. You're in a small department. There's no upward mobility. You just got nowhere to go. Whereas a bigger department like Saratoga Springs, you've got the investigator division. You got this division.
But there's not, though, Dan. There's no. So half of our investigators apparently are going to have to go do patrol now.
I get that, but at least conceivably, at least on paper, what
divisions do we have?
When the ship is righted, there will be opportunity here versus Mechanicville Police Department, which I don't know, has 10, 12 members. Not putting them down, but they're much smaller. There's much less opportunity there.
Right.
And a person with high hopes would say, I want to go to the bigger department. That's why they go to the state police in many instances. So
we just don't have those divisions, though.
Transfer. I'm sorry?
We just don't have any specialized divisions, though. Like it's been one of our, it was, again, one of the things I had hoped to do in office. Obviously that was derailed, but we don't offer the specialized divisions such that you're really just doing the same thing day in and day out, which is patrolling downtown, dealing with the same old shit in Saratoga, and waiting to hopefully have an opportunity to maybe, get a promotion. But the nature of your work, you can't go in any specialized direction. I mean, we had an officer leave for Arizona who was like super passionate about DWIs, and she wanted to do continuing education and get some specialized designations in DWIs, but we couldn't offer her that opportunity,
Departments of that size, though, generally can, when the ship is righted. The ship is not righted. I don't know if it ever will be. That's the side issue, right? We got to take care of compensation. We got to take care of management. As you pointed out a number of times, Jim Montanino in his short 6 months has made some horrible decisions that have affected the morale and the attrition rate of the department. That he needs to get that right. There's no doubt about it. So at least conceivably, you can see where Saratoga Police Department with 60-some members could be a good department to go to versus a smaller department, which still may be a good department. I'm not putting down the Mechanicvilles of the world, but let's face it, they do have limited opportunity for both promotion and specialization.
I have to say one thing, which is just there was a lot of mention of raising the compensation such that our police officers could afford to live in Saratoga Springs and didn't have to live elsewhere. And I just wanted to point out one thing was that a lot of the police officers that I spoke to and talked about specifically with that issue, they don't always love living in the place that they also police, especially when it's such a small town. Because everywhere you go, whether you have your uniform on or not, you're known as the police officer. And there's something to be said for separating your work life and your home life and your family life. So I know that in the past, it's been hard for me to live and work in the same small community with all the same people. And I'm not out there arresting people and, holding them accountable for their crimes, doing anything even remotely that controversial. So I just think that's kind of something to point out that you don't always want to. Would you agree, Dan, necessarily?
Yeah, the common phrase was, "I don't shit where I eat." They don't want to be living where they police. And in some cases they do. In some cases they do. And but back to the proposal to attract people with the increased compensation. They sold me, but Dan DeFedericis is a former union official for police officers. Of course they sold me. Adam, to your point, they need hard numbers from finance. They need to, again, to cost all this out, to see the costs and benefits. And even if there's a net cost, that may be fine because there's intangible benefits that go beyond the numbers. But so far, they haven't done that. In all fairness, it's only been around for a few weeks. There was no way it was going to get voted on, last month or this month, and nor should it be. This is Robin. I think you mentioned something about fall. That makes sense. To do this correctly, they need to run these numbers, and some of this is supposition, right? We're going to increase the salary, therefore more cops will want to transfer here. Well, I believe that, but I still need to see that in some sort of hard analysis, and I think everyone else needs to see that in some sort of hard analysis that hasn't even been close to scratching the surface.
Yeah, one gripe they had, and this I could understand, and Robin, you could probably appreciate this, is that the police and is essentially, this is their career, this is their livelihood, and theoretically every 2 years they see a new public safety commissioner. And not only that, when you have public safety commissioners come in and start changing the rules, like, Jim went from the 12-hour shift to the 10, and he said, I think he referenced some report that said it helps fight off fatigue, but the idea is that they plan the future, their lives, their childcare, they're around this 12-hour shift schedule, and just every 2 years have that in flux. I think it's not a great thing, and so I don't know. We do have a commission form of government. The public safety commissioner, it is in the charter. They can come and make certain changes, but it's got to be. We have to give them some kind of stability so that they can have a 2-5 year plan about what their lives are going to look like, and not be like, hey, I can't plan childcare for next year because there's an election coming up. So
but that's the point of having a contract, right? Like, we had a signed contract with the PBA that was, through whatever it was, 2025. So in theory, that they shouldn't be having that was in place. But what you're saying is absolutely correct, though, Adam. I was so acutely aware of how hard it would be to have your boss change potentially every 2 years, have to figure out who this new person is, how they operate, how they're going to respond. Are they going to respect your authority, expertise, knowledge? How are they going to work with you? I came into office after Commissioner Martin had been there, who had essentially really been incredibly disrespectful towards the people, the men and women in the public safety department, had dismissed their abilities, had really disempowered them, and really screwed with that department in ways that were like shitty. And so, I took a much different.
We spell that word out on this broadcast.
Sorry, yes, we're really silly. So I agree, and I just feel like it's incumbent on the person who's been elected to be like a decent human being and recognize that, and try to respect that, and not make it so challenging for these folks to have so much turnover. But it speaks to the commission form of government. These 2-year terms are crazy. I think we should have 4-year terms. It's just like not so. You can't get anything done. You figure everything out finally, and then you decide what you want to do, and then it's time to get reelected, and you have to go back to campaigning. It's bonkers.
If I could just quickly say, I do agree with you too that the presentation was excellent, especially the point of showing that the police officers are different to the point of, well, the other unions will want the same thing. Well, the other unions don't work midnight shifts. The other unions don't work holidays. The other unions don't have the attrition problems that a third of their officers are gone. The other departments don't have that. They did a really good job.
I couldn't agree more. Well, in the meantime, Gaffney's is reopened, guys. I don't know if you know that. Gaffney's reopened over the weekend. It was pretty quiet. I do know they can't have they're not supposed to have a DJ. They're not supposed to have any live music. I don't know how they kind of attract people in there if people can't come in and dance and listen to music. I would hate to ever see any business fail. I hope they're able to work within the parameters of what the SLA has given them to be open and still have some measure of success. But I didn't notice really any difference this weekend at all in terms of the downtown crowd. I will say, though, that when the Dead & Company show was canceled, which was such a bummer, I know for so many people, Dead & Company is obviously hugely popular. I am someone who is, and I hope this isn't offensive, people, I am silly and totally stereotype and live on Caroline Street. And I'm like, it's Dead & Company. All these dirty hippies are in town. And when the show was canceled, I was walking up to my office, which is right at the top of Caroline Street. And as I was walking up Upper Caroline, there was like 150, 200 people in the street outside of City Tavern where there was like a band playing in the window and it was like jammed. And I was like, holy SHIT. And I'm holding all this stuff and I'm trying to noodle through this crowd. And I knocked into like at least 3 or 4 people. And every time I did, I was like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Cause I feel like they're gonna assault me because that's kind of like the climate that we're living in. Instead, they're like, don't worry about it, honey. It's all good. Peace, love. Like they were so chill and happy. And then I was out again getting, I had a bunch of kids in my house, getting them drinks at DeAndre's at like 10:30. The whole crowd was gone. They'd all like gone home, gone to bed, whatever. And basically, long story short, that demographic who comes for Dead & Company, I'm like, you guys get a 2 thumbs up, triple A+ rating from this neighbor. And you are welcome to come party downtown on Caroline Street any old time you want, because maybe choosing to hit the weed a little more and hit the alcohol a little less, it creates a totally different dynamic and one that is peaceful, happy, love, chill, and I am all about it. And so I withdraw any comment I've ever made about dirty hippies. Yeah. I love you. Dead & Company fans, I love you.
Yeah, to give a little context, I guess John Mayer, who was the lead singer of Dead & Company, his father fell ill suddenly. So they were forced to cancel the show the day of. What really impressed me is I saw our local community really the business community really stepping up to provide a neat atmosphere and a neat entertainment for all these displaced concert goers. I know the Barrel House over in Beekman did a post where they were getting bands together. They were going to have live music throughout the night. So that's why people like coming to Saratoga, and that's what makes Saratoga special is that the sense of community and fun and ability to adapt to the changing situation. So what was a loss for all these concert goers was really, I think, a boom for our downtown, and they did a great job. They get catering to the masses who were expecting something else. So, thumbs up to our business community for that.
Agree. And Dave Matthews is tonight and tomorrow. Am I making that up, or is that correct?
Yeah, tomorrow.
I was yesterday.
I haven't noticed downtown being crazy yet. I was just downtown an hour ago, and so far it's not picked up. But the day's young.
Wait for it.
I got to tell you, yesterday I was driving to the Y on West Avenue for my kids' flag football thing. It was like Boston Ave was literally bumper to bumper, crazy, insane traffic. I was like, it must be Dave. It wasn't Dave. I don't know who was here last night. I think it was a country singer.
Morgan Whalen, yeah, who's I would not think it would be as big of a concert it was, but those tickets were selling for a lot. That's show.
Who is that? I have no idea who that is.
I was told avoid SPAC. Yeah, I'm so out of touch with these things. Folks, I got to throw you a curve here. I don't have a dire situation, but I do have a situation here in my house. So I have to sign off here and let you two finish it up.
No problem. Oh, shit. Shoot. I'm also late for a doctor's appointment. Okay, let's wrap up really quick. Can we do a 2-second cheer? Should we wrap it up?
I got time for that. I can do that. I'll do
quick.
I'll jump in with a quick cheer. We are 6 days away from track season. I want to cheer all the workers, not just at the track, but this entire city that are essentially a support group for track season. As you know, I am a fan of horse racing. A very small time owner. I've learned to love NYRA, believe it or not. I once was not high on NYRA. I'm good on them now. So cheers to everybody. And I don't have a jeer this week.
Are you up, Adam?
Boy, I don't know that I have either today. I just it's.
You want me to go while you think about it?
Yeah, why don't you go? Exactly. Go ahead. Oh yeah, you can throw the graphic.
I'll
up.
throw
Robert, go ahead and I'll jump in.
Okay, so I actually don't have a jeer this week. I only have a cheer, and my cheer is kind of cool. I have a 5-year-old, 9-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and they love playing wiffle ball and like kind of sports in general. There is this game called Jingle, which is JINGL, which I don't know if you guys can see this, but it looks like that. And it's a game that is like this hybrid of wiffle ball and some other stuff. And it's made by a local guy. I think the guy's in Gansevoort who makes this game, Jingle. And my kids, we ordered and love it. It's so fun. It's such a fun spin and take on kind of like a wiffle ball with some other elements. And I can't remember the last time I got a game from someone locally. And I just thought it was a cool thing in general. You can find it at Jingle the Game, which is JINGLthegame.com. And so if you have kids, teenagers or grown-ups, whatever, it's just a super fun game to play in the summer. And my kids have been really enjoying it. And I thought it was freaking cool that it was local. So cheer to Jingle the Game.
It's at G. Willikers, right? I can get it there.
I don't know if it's at G. Willikers, but
I bet it is. I'm gonna check.
I bet it. Yeah. It's super cool. I'll throw the link in the comments. But
okay,
that's what it looks like. If you can see that. Yeah. Okay. Anyway. All right. That's all I got.
I'll just cheer everybody like myself who moves out of town for August, rents their house out or for the racing season. It's a heck of a lot of work. But
yourself out of Israel?
What's that? I'm cheering myself and everybody like me right now who's got kids and who's got get houses ready and who's got to figure out what they're doing with their kids while they get the houses ready and keep the kids out of the houses after the houses are clean.
My heart bleeds for you so you can make thousands of dollars. Oh my God. Adam. I'm teasing you. I'm teasing.
What a great location you got for a rental.
Yeah.
How perfect.
Well, yeah, we got Saratoga, the track, east side, baby.
All right, guys.
On that note, Dan, let's go put out your fires.
All right, we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Saratoga.